I'm Greg Risdahl. The background for my book, The Legend of Lone Bear, really comes from my interest in the outdoors, as well as my interest in ancient cultures and civilizations. I'm a trained biologist, having spent 20 years with the state and federal government as a wildlife biologist, and I currently manage a national wildlife refuge in Alaska. My novel, The Legend of Lone Bear, it's multifaceted, I guess you'd say. It's a story about one man's journey into finding his spiritual nature and at the same time discovering an ancient Pleistocene underworld at the same time when the world is literally going to heck in a handbasket. The Legend of the Lone Bear takes place primarily in the Absaroka Beartooth Mountains in southwestern Montana, when the main character, Dr. Jacob Courtney, is caught in a snowstorm while elk hunting in the mountains, and he takes shelter in a cave where he discovers a Lakota Sioux Indian man living there. He's actually an older shaman that decided to leave civilization and spend his last few years living up in the mountains by himself the way his ancestors used to live. I started writing this book under rather unusual circumstances. The way it actually came about was my young daughters and I had been out on a horse riding trip during the day, and we'd been listening to a book tape in our pickup. On the way back, the tape ran out. The kids were kind of getting a little fussy, and so I suggested we tell a story of our own. So we each took turns making up parts of the story. And as we got further down the road, I got more and more into the story, and pretty much the last hour of the journey, I was making up the story as we went. When we got home, the kids were very excited about it, so the next time we got in the pickup, we decided to continue on with our story. Well, what happened after that was I was sitting there at home one day after work thinking, I had to write this story down. And so I did. I started writing, and in the process, I discovered something about myself that was, it was amazing. I had never done any fiction writing before, other than short pieces and such for school as a younger person. But in this case, it was sort of like I was channeling. I was living this journey as I wrote. I didn't know what was going to happen from one moment to the next. I didn't know what the characters were doing. They developed as I went. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote, and it just all came pouring out like somebody was channeling it through me. It took about 3 months to write that first draft, and I went back and read it, and it just, wow, it was a surprise. And after that, I, of course, spent many, many days, a lot more time rewriting than I did when I originally wrote the first draft. Anybody that loves a good adventure story would be interested in a book like this. I've had a lot of folks read it for me prior to even having it published, and everyone has said this would make a great adventure movie. So I think if you like action adventure, and of course it would be classified as a science fiction fantasy story, people would like that.
The Legend of Lone Bear is available on Lulu.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and Amazon.com.